Hi everyone, let's talk about Lowlands. And if you're wondering where's all of the game and stuff, why aren't I telling you the rules? There was a whole playthrough video, you'd have loved it. You can click on that and watch me playing through the game, and that will give you a far better idea of whether you would like the game than me rambling on about it. But in case you are interested, there are definitely things that I like about this. There are, the way that the sheep work, rather than the Agricola way that I am used to. They just multiply and multiply rather than just getting one new every time that they breed. You get one for every two, and you very quickly run out of space. And there isn't that much you can do to stop that. You can try and rapidly advance your fencing, but that's going to be the thing you need to focus on to do that. And you can't really focus on one thing in this. And selling them to the sheep market isn't much of an option because there's such limited space. You can only ever really sell two at a time to it, and it only resets at the end of a round. So I like that it's kind of, rather than trying to meticulously plan out that, I'm going to get one new sheep here, and so, do I need to do something about this to stop that? Oh no, it's a grickler, I can use it as a food, it will be okay. No, in this, you get sheep at such an alarming rate that you will not be able to keep up unless you have really put a focus on that. And it's nice that, you can use the buildings as kind of fences to help you out with that. And yeah, there's a bit of farm building in it. It's got on the front of the rulebook and the back of the box, it's got kind of I haven't seen it on any other games, maybe this is the first one with it. It's got an Uwe Rosenberg stamp of approval that he has supervised and done some development work on this game and recommended it for fans of his games. And for me, I've played a lot of Uwe Rosenberg games and love a lot of those games, and I don't really feel the connection in this game myself. I will say before I start, I know I've only said one good thing so far, there will be more, but as I've only played this as a two-player game, and yeah, to sum up, as a two-player game, it's very, very lacking, and I would lean towards saying even that it just doesn't work as a two-player game because the focus of the game is on this dike building, and the whole thing is geared towards you have to ask somebody to help you. And so in a game with 3 or 4 players, that's going to be a whole decision you have to make. You can't ask them. It's specifically, you can't negotiate with, you can't ask somebody which resources they have, for example, before you ask them to help you. So, you're planning out, I really want the dike to get built, so I will ask the person who's got the most resources to help. You have to you can see how many cards people have got in their hands, and you obviously don't want to help the person that's right next to you, or you don't want to help the person in last because you want them to get punished the most. Maybe you'll gang up on people and leave them behind. It's a very interactive, aka mean thing in the game, which doesn't come across as much in a two-player game, I suppose. It still felt quite mean, I'll be honest. That the compensation for you not being able to, there's no one to choose in a two-player game. You choose your opponent to help you out, and if that was your only choice, obviously it would be a complete waste of time because as long as they had the resources to be able to catch up, you would get one more for having let them help you, but they would pretty much be quite close to you if you could only ask your opponent to help. So to kind of mitigate that, the rule in the two-player version is you need to pay a coin. You can pay a coin and ask the market for help, and then you draw some cards, and maybe they'll help, maybe they won't. And it is a kind of another random factor in the game that kind of simulates a player, although with a player you would maybe have an idea from what they've drawn. You can't see the cards, maybe they would have drawn blind, so you don't really know as much. But yeah, it's simulating that a little bit because even picking a player, you can't know that they're going to have the resources to help you. So I suppose you can't complain too much that the market is quite an uncertain thing. But yeah, missing all of that kind of deciding who to help, and are we all going to go for? Do we all have to worry because 1 or 2 people are really going into this dike building and we're all falling behind and are going to get massively punished if we don't get into gear and start helping with this? Or is everybody kind of taking it easy and doing their farms, and we don't have to worry that much about this? That whole kind of dynamic is, it's very much missing, if not almost completely missing from the two-player game. You can, it's just if one person starts building the dike, to really punish you. You can kind of do other things, but you're going to have to. You can't just leave it behind. You're going to lose far too much, and yeah, you just have to kind of do it. And yeah, you end up. It's costing you points to do it, but leaving the other person behind, it's costing you a point in a coin, and it means you don't get the extra bump up for asking an actual person to help out. But yeah, it seems like, why wouldn't you ask the market? It's costing you a point, but you're leaving everyone else behind, and maybe the dike is going to get built anyway, and you're hopefully in front, so it doesn't really matter to you if it doesn't get built. You would get a nice reward if it was getting built, but otherwise it doesn't really matter. The game in general, though, that kind of concept, it sounds like an interesting way of doing it. It's definitely something that you don't really see in Euro games very much, but yeah, it's a very... I don't really like any system where it's kind of designed for you to kind of see who the leader is and not help them out, or see that, oh, this person's behind. If we work together, then they're stuck, and we can then, just see who's built the best farm out of us. I don't like any kind of conflict in games really anyway, but I hate the spirit of that completely. And yeah, it isn't really present as much. It does feel very... although you're not really directly doing anything to someone, it feels very mean that there is this kind of, I could ask you for help and you could catch up a little bit, but I'm not going to. I'm going to spend a coin and you're going to stay back there, and there's nothing you can do about that. You're going to have to devote all of your attention to this dike track now because I'm racing up it, and you're going to have to really do something about that. Sorry. That's not going to be for everyone. That's going to be specific to people that don't really like conflict in games. But whether you like that or not, it's missing too much in a two-player game to be a positive at all, really. And I haven't played this that much. I've only played one real game against a proper opponent because, to be honest, after our experience of playing it, I didn't really want to play it again, but Rach, who I play almost all of my games with, would absolutely refuse to play it again, to be honest. But yeah, in all of my games, so I've had the one real game, and I did a game to learn it, and I've done this one now. So not very many plays, but I really didn't like the game. In all of those games, it's unlucky with the drawing, I suppose, but the dike seems so impossible at two players, and it does seem that that there is... It nearly got built because we got lucky with some card draws from the market, I suppose. But yeah, it feels like it's a very tough thing to do, and that in all three of those games, it ended up with not in this game where every single time the dike never got built, but it ended up that in the end the dike wasn't built, and it was just a race to see who hadn't done the worst on the track, rather than have some kind of... This was probably the closest it ever came to maybe the dike will get built. And those other two times it was so far away from happening. And I would imagine that even though you were asking people to help in a 3 or 4 player game, just the same as in a 2-player game, you're only asking one person to help, but surely there are more players there that are, if the dike is the focus, that can contribute to it and kind of make it happen. So it seems that, I haven't played it that much, so I'm not speaking from any position of authority here, but for example, when there is all of the water flowing in Spirits of the Rice Paddy, completely different game, but a similar concept, in a 2-player game, the flood cards are adjusted for 2 players, so a certain amount, the water is supposed to be scarce in that, so there is enough scarcity of water in a 2-player game to keep the spirit of it the same amongst all of it. It seems strange to me that there is nothing changes for a 2-player game whatsoever, apart from that addition of the rule that, you can ask the market for help instead. It adds some kind of... The dike thing is random because you can kind of see what it's going to be. It's not completely random. There are these kind of these kind of you can go either way on it. Like the resources, you can just be completely stuck with them. And even though there is you can spend 2 resources of the same type to get a different resource. Yeah, sometimes in a 2-player game as well, one person can be just drawing exactly what they need and getting all of these things done. Oh, I've found the resource for the dike, or there were certain points in our 2-player game where I think the market had made the resource stone, so it was 1 position across on stone, and we just could not draw stone for the life of us. We were taking resource drawing actions for quite a bit more than we wanted to, and taking the income as just blind draws in the hopes to get stone, and it just wasn't happening. So we either have to spend double the cards that we would normally need to, or just go a different way, because ideally, rather than we're nice and we want this dike to be built. We understand the disaster that will happen if it doesn't get built, and although there is that kind of competition of, oh, I actually don't want to get it built because it would punish you more. We aren't mean players anyway, but yeah, we would like it to get built, and it was very hard to do with the flood cards that you have to deal with for only 2 players, and just the difficulty of getting hold of the resources. That's only a minor thing, but yeah, on the whole, I do like the farm building bit is what you're left with really in a 2-player game. If one person is really pushing the dike building, I don't think you can afford to just say, okay, I won't do that then, because you will get too many of these tokens, and if you haven't got enough sheep to lose for the dike breach tokens, you lose coins. If you haven't got enough coins to lose, you lose points. I don't know if you can make up for that in other things. I'm not an expert, I've tried to emphasize, but yeah, I really think that you are forced to do all of that. But even if, say, both of us decide to completely disregard the dike together, I don't think that the farm building alone is enough to carry the game. I don't think it's a particularly strong thing. I like the sheep thing. As I said, there are different ways that you can. There are plenty of buildings that affect the sheep, or give you more sheep, or let you house sheep on tiles, or change the way that your farm works a little bit. But the buildings themselves, okay, this action gets a little bit stronger, or get a coin for every 2 sheep. None of it seemed very exciting or game-changing, or that you were kind of building, that you were getting stronger in this thing compared to something like Agricola, which I know works completely differently and isn't really comparable, but you are building a farm in that, and it really feels like through all of the cards and things in that, you have a kind of identity, and I'm really strong at this, I want to focus on this. You kind of have to spread yourself across everything, and you are spread far too thin for any of it to really feel like it comes off. And yeah, there are definitely, you have advantage of you can pay any resources to build the fences, so you just have to kind of build up multiples of the same resource. Same with the dikes, but you are more limited to the resource you can use in the dikes. There isn't a huge amount of the buildings as in a 2-player game. I suppose there's quite a few, especially of the sheep buildings. But in a game with 4 players, I can't imagine that. I imagine that you will see most of these every game of the actual buildings, rather than the grass improvements that you can get. So yeah, there's not really that many there, and they don't really feel like I'm building a kind of. You're definitely not building a kind of engine or an identity or anything on the farm. There's the extent to it goes to is what Marty was doing really with. Okay, I've got there's some tiles that have come out that don't want me to build fences around ponds. I'll try and get those buildings, and I won't build fences around ponds. And that was just it for those 2 buildings. It didn't come across very much in the game to me at all. Yeah, I don't really want to sound too negative about this, but yeah, it was frustrating to play as 2 players, because I know I say in a lot of cases when games didn't work for us, sometimes a lot of time the reason is that, I think this would work a lot better with more players, for many, many different reasons. But more than ever in this, I really felt that such a significant chunk of the game was missing in 2 players that I would not recommend it at all if that's what you're picking it up for. Maybe, yeah, even if you've got it for more than 2 players, I wouldn't recommend you. Yeah, if you've only got one other person to play with, I wouldn't recommend trying this personally. It's and outside of all of our preferences for conflict and in games and everything, I don't feel like the 2-player game is strong in any way. And the dike building is such a central part of the game, and such a big element of its interaction, of the kind of seeing the flow, seeing how everybody goes in the game, that it basically being absent in a 2-player game is too much to lose. And yeah, I'm kind of racking my brains to try and be a little bit more positive about it, but I have to say that we did have, as people that only play 2 players really most of the time, 90-95% of the time, it was a real shame, because yeah, maybe somebody's played it and can tell me that they loved it at 2 players, but yeah, it felt like for us, it could have saved us some frustration having this be a 3 to 4 player game. But that's just me. It's it's based on my experience from playing plenty of games, but still, I'm just one person, and it's just my opinion based on what we played. So yeah, take that with a grain of salt. Watch the playthrough, although I will say that it is a playthrough of 2 people playing the game when I really feel that the game is missing a lot of it. So yeah, make from that what you will, really. That's Lowlands. I hope you enjoy it. Maybe you're 3 and 4 players and you're really cutthroat and you're going to absolutely love this. I know that just before I filmed this, actually, the No Pun Included review went up, and yeah, I've tried not to paraphrase any of the points that they made because you can watch their video, but they had a whale of a time with it. They absolutely loved this, and loved it for its meanness and how interactive and stuff it is with more players. But yeah, I didn't see any of that because I only played with 2, and yeah, like I've said plenty of times in this, it was a big disappointment to add 2 players. But that's Lowlands, everybody. I hope that the box doesn't fall over and that the playthrough at least gives you a good idea of what the game's like anyway. I will see you for the next game when hopefully we will be back to happier times. Bye.